So, join me in welcoming a really good friend of mine, someone who loves our community, somebody named, I think his name is Joe, good old Joe, President Joe Biden, y'all. Uh-oh. Well, I'm a little underwhelmed, aren't you all? I think I messed up. Y'all, please vote for me, okay?
This is Joe Biden, the President of the United States. On August 15th, 2023, Biden was in Wisconsin to give a speech on his so-called Bidenomics policy. First, as with every appearance, while walking to the stage, he attempts to jog, which he can't sustain for more than 2 seconds. Then he tries it again, thinking he'll get a different result. The definition of insanity, folks.
Please have a seat if you have one. I said that once early in my presidency, and there were no chairs. I couldn't see. Press wrote Biden doesn't even know whether people can stand or sit. Anyway.
Now, Biden has told this anecdote numerous times in the past. I told people to sit and there were no seats.
Please take a seat if you have one. I said that when I was seeking the nomination. I said, take a seat, everybody. And there wasn't a single chair in the place. I said, that Biden really is stupid. He doesn't know it.
So Biden claims that this happened before he became president or after he became president. He's never consistent.
I said that when I was seeking the nomination. I said that once early in my presidency.
And sure, it sounds plausible that someone in the press called him stupid, right? However, there is not a single news article that exists anywhere where Biden was criticized for telling people to sit when there were no seats, because it never happened.
I used to work for the county. I used to be a county councilman when I was 26 years old. And I tell you what, I ran for the Senate because it's too damn hard being on the county council.
But then Biden had to postpone the levity and talk about a subject that he clearly didn't want to talk about.
I apologize because I try very hard to keep my speeches between 15 and 18 minutes. But I got to talk a little bit about Hawaii.
You hear that, right? He's apologizing for having to stop cracking jokes because he's forced to talk about the situation in Hawaii. The most empathetic president, my ass.
FEMA Administrator Griswold, who's the best we ever had, I think.
Oh yeah, Diane Criswell is so great that Biden constantly screws up her name.
And the FEMA Administrator, who's become the MVP here these days, I spent a lot of time in this room, Griswold, FEMA, and the entire workforce. And FEMA Administrator Diane Criswell is here.
And because Joe Biden is so invested in helping the people of Hawaii, he attempts to race through his scripted comments because apparently he's only seeing them for the first time.
To date, FEMA has approved 50,000 meals, 75,000 liters of water, 500 beds, 10,000 blankets.
81 million votes, guys. And then he goes off teleprompter and confuses the names of individual Hawaiian islands. Because of course he did.
The Army helicopters help fire suppression and efforts on the Big Island because there's still some burning on the Big Island, not the one where you see on television all the time.
But the fire wasn't on the Big Island, it was on the island of Maui. But Joe Biden doesn't care. Hell, not caring is practically his job at this point. So he quickly moved on to more important issues.
My wife called me one day and says, "Did you read the paper today?" And I was up campaigning for a guy named Pat Leahy in Vermont. I said, "No, honey, I didn't see the Wilmington paper." He said, "Headline, above the fold." Only a politician's wife would say that. "Biden, poorest man in Congress. Is that true?" Like I was cheating on her or something. But I was.
It's nice that Joe Biden can talk about the tragic events in Maui and then quickly shift gears and tell a story about his wife supposedly being mad at him or something. So much for that world-famous empathy, huh, Hawaii? So for decades, Joe Biden has tried to keep up the facade that he was, and still is, middle-class Joe or lunchbox Joe in an attempt to sustain a fake connection with regular folk. So I thought it would be interesting to explore Joe Biden's claim that he was poor. First, back in 2019 during his presidential campaign, Biden told reporters, "I entered as one of the poorest men in Congress, left as one of the poorest men in government in Congress, and as vice president." This was fact-checked by PolitiFact as mostly true. Long story short, their conclusion was that he was among the poorest to serve in Congress, not that he was the poorest to serve ever, as Biden has falsely claimed throughout his residency.
I had the dubious distinction of being listed as the poorest man in Congress. I also was listed for 36 years as the poorest man in the Senate. I was listed as the poorest man in Congress for, not a joke, for over 30 years. Biden, poorest man in Congress, is that true?
No, it's not, Joe. And I can definitively prove it. According to OpenSecrets.org, who analyzed the financial disclosure forms of everyone in the House and the Senate during Biden's last year in office, there were 3 senators listed with a smaller net worth than Biden.
I'm a capitalist, but guess what? I'm also listed for 36 years as the poorest man in the Congress.
Fact check false. According to Open Secrets analysis, in 2008, there were 32 House members who had less net worth than Senator Joe Biden. And according to OpenSecrets.org, Biden was not listed as the poorest man in Congress for as far back as they've been making these lists.
And she said, "Did you read today's paper?" True story. "Did you read today's paper?" Meaning the local Wilmington papers, Wilmington, Delaware. I said, "No, honey, I didn't see it." She said, "Headline, front page, top of the fold, Biden, poorest man in Congress. Is that true?"
No, it's not true. I have searched archives of every Delaware newspaper for a headline about Joe Biden being the poorest man in Congress, and it does not exist, because he made it up. I know you're shocked. The closest I found was this article from 1996. Senator Joseph R. Biden has a 6-figure salary and a house he sold for $1.2 million to an MBNA executive, which makes this Democrat the poorest man in Delaware's 3-member congressional delegation. So obviously when the paper said that he was the poorest, it was being said ironically, because poor people don't generally live in mansions, let alone sell them for millions of dollars. But notice that they didn't say that he was the poorest in Congress. They specifically said he was the poorest delegate from Delaware. Yet he was poor despite the fact that senators make a decent salary. But why is that? Well, it turns out that Biden's financial issues were of his own making. According to reporting by the Wall Street Journal, Mr. Biden's financial struggles, compared with many of his colleagues, weren't just a product of his reliance on a government salary. They also stemmed from his penchant for buying stately houses. By the time he was 28, Mr. Biden had purchased 4 different properties in quick succession, juggling a loan from his father-in-law and 3 mortgages at times. "I was in constant danger of falling behind," he wrote in his book. Wow, Joe Biden, irresponsible with money? You don't say. Mr. Biden's efforts to live like some of his wealthier Senate colleagues at times led him to borrow money against the value of his homes and life insurance policies, and he routinely reported a negative net worth. Translation? Joe Biden was irresponsibly buying homes that he couldn't afford, and he hopes that his supporters are stupid enough to believe that he's living like some kind of pauper, despite the fact that his house was literally a mansion.
I was a United States Senator. I had the dubious distinction for 36 years of being listed as the poorest man in the Senate, but I was making a lot of money as a senator from my perspective. And I didn't think I should be making any money other than my salary as a senator.
That is a massive lie. In fact, it might even be the biggest lie that Biden has ever told so far. Because from very early on in his Senate career, Joe Biden was making tens of thousands of dollars per year in outside income. According to contemporaneous newspaper reporting, in 1976, Biden earned $21,823 outside of the Senate, all of it by opening his mouth. In 1977, Senator Joseph R. Biden Jr. supplemented his income by $22,596 through one of his favorite avocations, talking. Hang on, I thought that Joe Biden was poor and didn't make money outside of his salary.
Well, I didn't think you were supposed to make money when you were in Congress, but at any rate. I didn't think you should make money while you're in office, but at any rate.
Biden is absolutely full of f***ing shit. During his first 2 decades in office, Biden gave nearly 400 speeches and wrote numerous articles for large fees. From 1973 to 1990, Joe Biden made nearly $462,000. And the only reason that gravy train ended is because in 1991, ethics rules were put in place that made it illegal for members of the Senate to collect honoraria from speeches.
I didn't think you were supposed to make money when you're in the Senate. I thought you were just supposed to take a salary. But folks.
And these morons clap like he sacrificed something. Joe Biden is pure as the driven snow. He's a phony piece of garbage. Not to mention, completely stupid. Watch Biden back in 2014 talking about himself in the third person.
He makes, notwithstanding he's listed as the poorest man in Congress, he still makes a lot of money as Vice President of the United States, and I do, by the way. I do. Don't hold it against me that I don't own a single stock or bond. Don't hold it, I have no savings account.
Okay, not investing in the stock market as a politician is one thing. But Joe Biden is bragging that he didn't own any bonds. Like, not even treasury bonds? Really? And on top of that, he's bragging that he doesn't own a savings account. Like, that makes him even more pure. So to recap, Joe Biden, a genius who can't even manage his own money, now manages the largest economy on the planet. Fucking clown world. Anyway, that's it for now. Follow me on X at Don't Walk Run. Be sure that you're still subscribed to the channel. And as always, thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time. If there is a next time.